Today the concept is the national liberal movements in colonies. What is the meaning of national liberal movements? There are many countries which are controlled by the other countries. It is like colonialism. This colonialism concept spread during the 19th century, and almost all the countries which have influenced the Industrial Revolution I think you all know what is Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution is the concept of changing from man-made goods into machine-made goods. It is getting transformation from man to machines. Here, earlier man used to do all the things, and now because of the Industrial Revolution, because of the invention of the new machines, we got every work done by machines rather than by man. And in this process, the influence of man has become very less and the influence of machines has become more, and it also brought increase in the production. Now, the increase in the production has automatically raised the increase in the industries. The industries were multiplied, tripled, and 4 times they were increased. Now, when an industry is set up, we need employees, we need first of all the raw material. The raw material should be processed in the industries because we already invented the machines. Now, after the invention of the machine is done, we can't keep it aside. So, we have to use it. So, when the raw materials are brought, and now we need the raw materials for the countries. The countries which need raw materials or which influenced or got the influence of Industrial Revolution are, first one is France, Britain, USA got it much later. First main one is Britain, then France people, later Dutch people, Portugal, Spain. It moves on the number. Almost many of the European countries got this Industrial Revolution. Now, once they got the Industrial Revolution influenced here, and after they experienced that they need raw materials at very less cost, so automatically they planned that we have to go for the cheapest availability of the raw materials. What do we need at the cheapest availability? The raw materials. Now, the raw materials, where do we get at the cheapest levels? If any nation is having the raw materials also, why would they sell for us at very less cost? Yes, it's a valid point. We can't expect any nation, for example, take a country like India, where we can produce large amounts of wheat or rice or cotton seeds, whatever it is required for us, or the oil seeds at huge amount or bulk in production because we have large amount of land. Even though we have this, why would we get ready to sell for a country like Britain or France or Dutch or Spain or Portugal at very less cost? What would be the purpose behind it? Definitely we would not sell it. India, in the sense here, Indian people. Why would the Indian people think to sell it there? Indian people would not like to sell it at very less cost. If there is a chance that these people are expecting us to sell it, we automatically get the rise in the price, and it would lead to competition for them. So, in order to eliminate all these kind of things, the Britishers have initially got an idea that instead of asking them, if we curb the nation, if we occupy the nation and come with a logo that we are civilizing them, we are providing civilizing them or civilization making sure that it is like spreading of the Christianity or the new concept, or many of the historians agree to the word like it is white man's burden. White man's burden. This is the title given for the colonialization. In order to occupy any country directly, if we go and occupy any nation, they would not agree us, and it would result in a major revolt or in a war. So in order to get compromise from them, initially they sent some Christian missionaries to spread the Christianity in these places where they don't know Christianity at all. Later on they moved on with an intention of doing trade and buying the products at very less cost from them to get the raw materials from them, and finally after taking over the charge of the trade, later they come down to attacking one group of countries, then attacking the nation leaders, then occupying that one. Now for example, take India. In India we have many kings. There are nearly 563 princely states in our country. So India first they came towards Kolkata region, then they came towards Chennai region. After they established good intimacy with the kings, later they started to dictate the kings. Whenever the king refused to act on the advice of the people of the Britishers or the British admirals, automatically the king was attacked or imprisoned, or the king was replaced with a puppet who will listen to the advices of the British admirals. And later on, after they occupy one kingdom, later they moved on to the other kingdom. Like that they occupied the entire country India now. Now what is the intention is, the final purpose for their industries, they need raw materials at very less cost, which can be supplied from a country like India where we have it in bulk. Even though if India is not having the items which we require, we will force the people to do the plantations according to our interest and make them to follow them or give strict guidelines for them, or intentionally they used to dictate what crop to be cultivated and spoil the entire local crops. Their intention was only to have their motherland prosperous and squeeze the wealth of India. So they made India as a colony. In this process of 19th century, many countries of the European countries like Britain, France, Dutch, Portugal, Spain have the idea of colonizing the nations of Asia and Africa, because in Asia and Africa we don't have the much influence of the industrial revolution, and these countries are much influenced by the traditional outlook rather than the modernization. Now coming to the countries like India, the other nation which is almost felt that it is always in the state of freedom or in the free hands, that is China. China is located in the northeastern region of India, upper elevation part. It also acts as a boundary for us by adding Tibet to its territorial regions. Now China is a very large country in the world with the highest amount of population as per the latest census. China was considered as it is a free nation and it does not have any influence, or it is not under colonial control of any. Now coming to the reality of China, is really China occupied by any nation? Because if you see the earlier parts of the 19th century history, China was never occupied by any nation, and the king of China resisted for the intimacy or the trade relations with the Britain or with the Japanese people. Later on it led to two consecutive wars that are known as the Opium Wars. This Opium Wars, initially in the first Opium War he was victorious, which was held in 1839. Later the second Opium War, which was held in 1857, he was defeated in the hands of the British people, and he was forced to agree the consequences and the trade agreements between the China and the Britain people. In this process, China fell into the hands of the Britain, and also Japanese people have some influence. So to analyze the realistic situation of China people, whether they were under the control of any nation, or did they fight against their resistance, or through the process of revolution like in Russia, did they pass from one form of generation to the other form, like from monarchic style to the aristocratic style, from aristocratic style to the democratic setup? What would be the process led by the China people? And now in this lesson we are going to concentrate on the liberal movements in the colonies of Asia and Africa. So China is a part of Asia, and we shall deal one of the most controversial countries, which was fueled by the Western countries, that they have to face a war. Instead of facing war because of their internal consequences, they faced a war because of the external pressures which were kept on them. That is nothing but Vietnam. and later we move on to an African nation called Nigeria, and then we'll wind up with the situation here. So this is the introduction of the lesson. Many countries have tried to occupy the other countries for their personal interest, but keeping the name as the white man's burden or the true gospel preach. In this way, the process of colonization started in the nations. Now we shall concentrate on China. Later on in China we will discuss in the further details. Now moving on to the concept of China here. China was completely ruled by monarchs up to the year of 1911. China was ruled by the dynasty called Manchu dynasty. The Manchu dynasty kings are very much self-concentrated and like absolute monarchs. They never took the interest of the people. They used to increase the hikes of the prices and they used to give concessions for them. It is not that they are not interested here. They were forced to do such kind of situations because the situations are demanded by the colonial masters in such a way that. So, in order to have the modern shape or modern feel for China, the man who took the initiative was Mr. Sun Yat-sen. This man, Sun Yat-sen, removed the Manchu dynasty people from the rule, and he has taken over the chair through a process of systematic fight. So, this man was considered as the founder of modern China. Earlier, China was not a much developed nation, but self-sufficient nation. As the time passed on, because of the developments made by Sun Yat-sen and the other people who came after him, made the things clear that China would appear to be an industrialized nation rather than only an agricultural nation. So the process of Sun Yat-sen forming into a modern China, let us concentrate on 2 minutes about Sun Yat-sen. Who is this man of Sun Yat-sen? The Sun Yat-sen was a person who was born in a very poor family, and though he is born in a poor family, he had a vision for his nation. He studied his medicine, he could do his fortune very well, he would get a better job than this, but he was very much upset with the fate or the conditions which are happening in China. So he was concentrating more on the fate of China rather than the fate of him. So he had some principles which would guide China to be a very well developed nation rather than the present existing situation. Now his principles are known as 3 R's. These principles are 3 in number. So the first one principle is nationalism, the second principle is democracy, the third principle is socialism. According to him, nationalism is must for any nation to attain development. What is the meaning of nationalism? The nationalism is nothing but the feeling of oneness between all the people, that there is some binding force between all the citizens of the nation. That feeling of oneness is known as nationalism. Did you get the point here? For example, you take the Indians. The Indians are bound by the feeling that we all are together. We have unity in diversity. This is a bonding feature of Indians. In India, you find different language people, different cultural people, different religious people, different language spoken people, different dialectic people, different cultural people. All this together we found together the Indian nation. In the same way, in China also we have the multilingual nature, multi-religious attitude, and they don't speak the same languages which is familiar with the other people. But in order to build a strong nation, we need some strong binding connectivity. That strong binding connectivity, according to Sun Yat-sen, is nationalism. And moving on to democracy, till that time we have experienced the absolute monarchy in China, or by the control of the colonial masters, where the real people or the people does not have any influence or any power on the making of the government. In this process of making of the government, people should have their say must. So this is the idea of our Sun Yat-sen. Basically, Sun Yat-sen is well educated, though he belongs to a poor family. He studied many of the books of medicine. At the same time, when he was in the free time in the library, he used to refer the other developments which are happening in the world. So he got an idea that democracy would be a better aspect rather than the monarchy. So now nationalism and democracy are must for us. These two are commonly seen features anywhere in any corner of the world. Then he introduced the concept of socialism under the influence of Russia, because in Russia we can see people are fighting for bread. The condition is that the situations are worst. So in order to come out of the situation of the worst conditions, we have to plan properly and execute the system of colonialism. And to come out of colonialism and to have an equal development for all citizens, we need to have the socialism concept. What is this socialism? Socialism is nothing but the major lands, the major industries, the major profit shares are holded by the government. There will not be any individual share for anyone, provided everything will be taken care by the government. They will be paid fixed salaries, which means that we don't have the division between the people of rich and the poor. There will be all considered as equal members of the nation. This is the process of socialism. So his ideology was this. So in 1911, when the revolution took place and China became a republican country under the influence of Sun Yat-sen, who took the initiative and formed the republican nation, but it could not live longer. Very soon, even Sun Yat-sen, who is having a great vision towards the nation and who is very much committed towards it, who left his personal life and moved on for the development of the country, could not do much because he could not control the warlords who are the military people of China, which resulted in the process that government have very limited control and the entire nation was controlled more by the warlords. So initial state of democratic republic which was established by Sun Yat-sen was a failure. It has some more consequences to be added for this. Now 4th May 1990. Till now we have discussed about the instability which is happening because of our Sun Yat-sen, who could not control the warlords. The warlords have taken over the entire control, which means that the military has taken over the entire control over the people, which led for the further consequences and which led for the further issues here. Now coming on 4th May 1919, do you remember the date 1919? We have discussed it earlier also. The 1919 date is very crucial because we have to remember that during the year 1919, after the First World War came to end, the Treaty of Versailles was signed and China was on the side of the victorious nations and Japan was on the side of the victorious nations. So once when it was signed on 4th May, the people in China came together as a rally or as a protest against the rule or the existing system, especially on the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles was not at all on the perfect aspects of peace treaty. It is the treaty which has done or cut the feathers of Germany, and at the same time the China people have not get any benefits from this. The territories which are occupied by Japan of China's region were not handed over to China back, rather it was given to administer to the Chinese people only, to the Japanese people only. In this way, it has brought many issues which are not at all positive trends towards the people of China. So the people of China are very much upset and angry with the situation. So they demanded that it would be better if we have a change of the system and we should need a better leader who can bring a perfect system of development in China to save China from the turmoil. We have to save China. If we don't save China, further it will be in the problems. Like Russia, it would face further critical issues. So the people of China had a vision that we should have the incorporation, we should have the principles incorporated into China is the modern science. The modern science, the democracy and nationalism. The modern science in the sense here is the modern technology which is used in the other nations, like getting the industrial machinery, and for everything it can be done by machines rather than doing by hands or by man. So if you do it by machinery, the work output will be doubled and tripled, which could lead further for the supply of export items. Then we can develop, we can get the foreign exchange, we can develop expand our business, and also we can get many modern medicines, modern technology of treatment. These all things were the intention of the people in asking for science or the modern science. In democracy, they don't want the concept of absolute monarchy or the militarian rule of warlords. They want a clear picture where people's interests are addressed by the leaders. The intention is that the people are to be the central focus of point when any decision is taken by the rulers at any point of time. In democracy, that is possible only and only in democracy, because Other than democracy, we don't have any method which is happening for the modern period which could be a better alternative of getting of absolute monarchy or the further situations. Now, next, coming to the spring of nationalism, as we don't have perfect system of ruling, we don't have the perfect binding feature between all of us. Because there is no perfect binding of all of us, this led to the further issues and complications of the people. So we need a perfect nationalism, perfect national spirit. When the national spirit arises only, we can fight for our nation. So the people intended to have a perfect national spirit. Actually, what happened on 4th May 1919 was that people of students, especially of nearly 13 to 19 universities, came together at Beijing or Peking and gathered there to demonstrate their unsatisfaction against the Treaty of Versailles, the way it was treated, the way China was subsided, the way the lands of China were handed over to Japan, and the injustice done for the China people did not add any benefit for us, and the warlords taking over the charge. These all were the issues which made the students to get anger against the China's administration. So they came against them to have a say about it. And the changes what they need is, they want their language to be very simple and easy. They want to change the language concept. Instead of using a complex language, better use a simple language which is understandable to all the people. Everybody can understand the language and can write it very easily. A simple and straight language would be a better means of communication rather than a complex and complicated language where nobody can understand it properly. This is the intention done by the people on the issue of language. Further, there was a crucial condition that foot binding. The women are not allowed to have their foot grown completely. The foots of women are forcefully binded by the cloth that the foot won't get merged properly. It's like, imagine that this is the foot of a woman. The foot of the woman, when she was small itself, by the time she is getting aged, they start to bind it with a cloth and forcefully, very tightly, that the further development. Today's concept is Vietnam. Vietnam has a historical significance in the history of Vietnam because Vietnam struggle is not with one nation. They have to fight with two nations. At the same time, the fight between themselves was fueled by the other superpower nations. So let us see what happened stepwise in detail, what made the procedure of Vietnam to go into such an crucial things, and finally how did Vietnam come out of these kind of problems or the issues. Now, why did I say that Vietnam has to fight with two colonial masters? One is the French. As usual, Vietnam was colonized by French as it was India colonized by the Britishers. They ruled same as India was ruled by the Britishers by putting a puppet in the name of the king and controlled it as per their remote senses. Now, the situation, then why did we come to the second power coming entry into the Vietnam? See here, the second power is the Japan. Japan comes far late into the picture when compared to the French introduction. Now let us deal with French first, then let us enter into the Japanese entry into the Vietnam. Now, what is the plan of French in establishing control over the Vietnam? Vietnam is a place where it is located in the eastern part, southeastern part of Asia. Its location is 15 degrees latitude and 105 degrees longitude. Now, if you see the location of Vietnam, it is in the very closer edge of the part. The Vietnam is having surrounded by water bodies, and the very close country to Vietnam is Laos. We have the maritime boundaries of Indonesia, Java, Malaya, Sumatra and all these countries. Now, from this we can get to the picture of clarity that Vietnam is a place where we can do agriculture more. As per the location of Vietnam, we can get into the clarity that Vietnam is very close to the equator. The lands which are very close to the equator or the equatorial points or nearby to equator, they receive heavy amount of sunrise which will cope up them to do good cultivation. In this process of doing cultivation, we need good sunrise. So, we need the sun rays of sun which is nearby to the equator. So the French people who know basically what is the importance of sun, and in French we don't have the temperatures more than 20 degrees, so they plan to develop Vietnam as an agricultural nation, and so that they could export the rice from Vietnam to the other nations. In the gradual process of establishing control over Vietnam, they established a puppet king, they removed the earlier king Nhayan, and they established a puppet king according to their wish. They started to do the investments and they started to develop the things which are necessary for them, which in turn intended into the development of exports, landlordism and peasants. Coming to the exports, landlordisms and peasants, the French people had a threefold idea of the development. That is, first point is we have to develop the irrigation. The second point what we have to develop is the infrastructure of landlords. The third point is marketing. These three strategies are called threefold development strategy of French people or the France. Now coming to here, in irrigation, as we all know, to develop a nation in the agricultural sphere or sector, we have to supply water for the fields. The supply of water for the fields through water or canals is known as irrigation. Now coming to the irrigation facilities of Vietnam, the Vietnam has a very good water supply and it has only a minor regions where we can't get the supply of water for it. So the regions which are not getting the water supply near the regions of the Mekong Delta, many canals and rivers were diverted to get the water supply for it. These all steps were in a huge way, they built small canals to connect the fields so that every field will get water supply for it. This is the plan and the ideology of the French people in getting the infrastructure, especially the irrigation, to be done. And at the same time, they are very clever and cautious that they don't give any chance for the people to stand against them and to go up for the revolt. So they have planned to establish the landlordship. The landlords will maintain the lands under them and they force the people, those who are small peasants and the landless labor, to work under them for very less wages or to go for the forced labor system. In case the small farmer cannot repay the loan back, the landlords can take over their lands and hand it over to the under their own control, so that automatically the small landless person becomes a labor. So in this process, they want landlords to get negative to the people, not the French people directly. So the intention of the French people is that in case in future if any resistance comes, that resistance should be between the landlords and the landless people, not between the French people and the landless laborers, so that they are building a barricade between them and the revolution. This is the ideology or the ideal strategy of the French people in the second of landlordism. The landlords were supported by the French people and the landlords are forced to give share for the French government whenever it is necessary in their profits. So depending on these bilateral calculations, both of them have agreed and put forward their views. And coming to the third one, marketing. To do marketing, we need the connectivity of the products from the local areas to the national and the international areas. So they started to develop the road transport, rail transport in this way, so that the product can be carried to the nearest places where we can get the best market. So by 1931, with the efforts and plannings of the French people, it became the third largest producer of rice in the world. It started to produce in the world, placing third the rice, and the total amount of rice produced in Vietnam, among that 2/3 of the rice is exported by the French people to the other nations. In this process, the people are forced to get to work here and they are landless people, so they were compulsory using the concept of forced labor. What is the meaning of the word forced labor? Here, a labor is a person who works to get his livelihood or daily wages, or as per his requirements, the food, be bread or something else. But when it comes to forced labor, the person is not having any choice when coming to the work. He has to work according to the requirement of his landlord or the owner or the person who is dictating him. He can't question him, or he can't even ask him to give some wage or something, or bread or food for whatever the work he has done. This kind of concept is called as forced labor. In this process of development of Vietnam in an agricultural field, the French has invested very little of their own, but they have forced the people to do the canal work, to build the roads, to build the railway tracks, to build the bridges, to do all these things under the concept of the forced labor. Really, they did not invest much on the infrastructure, but the output, that is the price production, has been taken away much. It's 70% is taken away by the French people, and they used to sell it in the abroad markets and used to get higher margins, in which the landlords also used to take a keen interest on that. So in the process of making Vietnam a large agricultural nation, we can see the exports have played a very vital role for us. Coming to the landlordism, landlords are the key connectivity between the French revolutionary people or the government people versus the peasants, the normal people. Now these three words are interlinked in the life of the Vietnam farmers. See here, the irrigation facilities are improved by making the people to work with the forced labor. The canals, the routes, the everything were done by the people. Here they are forced to do it at very less cost or no cost. And the second concept is they are backed by landlords. The landlords are the local people who may influence the other landless people to work for them at very less cost. This will make them to work at the very considerable low rate level. And the marketing brought the roads and railways infrastructure for the Vietnam, through which we can transport the entire product from one place to the another place. In this way, the exports, the landlordism and the peasants have played a very vital role, and in the transition of this period, or the getting the transformation here, many people at many places, the landless small peasants were turned into landless people because of the atrocities which were kept by the landlords, and we don't have any financiers who are going to help them, so they are bound to take money from the landlords, which made them to get landless people very soon as per the statistics. Now moving on to the concept of the civilizing mission. What does this mission mean to the people of Vietnam? Now, as the Britishers, we know the colonial masters. The Britishers are the colonial masters of our nation, India. In the same way, now coming to the comparison here, how Indians were treated as a native people. The native people in the sense, native meaning is that the local people. These people don't know anything. Don't know in the sense here relating to the technology, modernization, development, education, and completely believing in the superstitious beliefs. These all concepts were included in the Indian background. The same case repeats with the Vietnam. Here only the names are changing. Vietnam and their colonial master is French. So coming to the comparison here, India has been treated by the Britishers as the land of superstitions, the land of illness, the land of blackness or unknown things, because they don't have any access to the technology, modernization, industrial revolution and all these aspects. Now coming to the point here, Vietnam was also considered as the people of natives who don't have any basic knowledge of technology, education, literacy or anything else, which further leads for us with the concept of the civilization mission, or to civilize the Vietnam is the next target of the French. What is the hidden motto of the French people in assuring the civilization mission? What could be the context of this? Is truly the French people concentrating on the development of the Vietnam people? Do you think? The answer is no, because the French people need educated labor. What do they need? Educated labor people to work for them at very less cost. You imagine the situation now. If a person comes from far away French and settles in Vietnam, we have such kind of people living here. Those people are called as colons. The colons are the people of the French who are living in Vietnam, who basically belongs to French, who have the knowledge of English, French and literacy access, who can read and write, who are working under various professions like police, teachers, lecturers, doctors and etc. These various professions are done by the non-Vietnam people, the colons. And the French government started to think of the alternative because these people are very expensive and to bear them here is a very costly concept. In order to have the workforce, that to the educated labor at very less cost, the French people came with the concept of civilizing mission. Through this mission, they want to educate the people of Vietnam in the language of French. Now, what is the motto of these people educating them in the language of French is that they can utilize them for their purpose and ultimately they can be used as the educational labor at very less cost. So, the initial stages, this was introduced in the schools, and as most of the teachers who are working in the primary schools of Vietnam does not belong to the basic Vietnam people, the percentage of teachers working in the Vietnam schools are very less of local people. So, initially it was very successful. They started to implement this and they used to teach Vietnamese language also as one of the languages which was taught for the primary schools. As the time passed on, the teachers started to get dissatisfied with the people, and even the teachers of French who does not belong basically to Vietnam started to oppose the move of the colonial government. What made them to oppose the move of the colonial government? Because we have people who came a long way from French to Vietnam in the east and working for the French colonial government as doctors, police, teachers, lecturers and the various other professions. Now, once if the local people are getting educated to their maximum extent and if they get access to the French language and they can start doing the work in the form of educated labor for the French people, automatically the alternative of these people would generate for them a very loss for them. They may lose their jobs. This is the idea which struck in the minds of the French colons who are working in the Vietnam. This made them to understand the fact or the growing merging trends of the French colonial government. The mounting reaction which is going to come for them is that they are ultimately going to lose their basic livelihood or job from them. So, automatically they will be forced to send back to French. In this way they started to oppose them. The other reaction what we got from the local people is that why should we force to get learned the French language, and ultimately the French curriculum or the textbooks which are printed for the primary people will glorify the French government and praise the French colonial system of government. This kind of attitude which is going to be taught to the future generations will make consider that people may become supportive towards the French people, because in Germany also the same incident happened when Hitler raised the feeling of Nazism and promoted the feeling that only we are superior and the others are inferior to us and eliminated the Jews. We got various other issues to be generated. So, the people are afraid and the local elite group opposed the move of the French colonial government. So, totally we got a severe criticism for the civilization mission under the title which is implementing the French education for the primary schools, and there are various questions which brought them, and this further raised the concept of nationalism. Till now Vietnam people does not have the concept of nationalism at all. So, the concept of nationalism has raised a deep understanding for the people of Vietnam, which made them or forced them to generate towards the nationalism, because they are taught the other languages other than their primary mother tongue languages, and in the sense they are forced to do that. which means that they are not having any choice to do. They are doing it only by the chance of their getting them educated, and they are going to be used for the others purpose, not for their development or not for their nation's development. This ideology started to swept in to the brains of the Vietnam people, and the emergence of the concept of nationalism came far away. It is in the wave which started to move into the Vietnam and oppose the steps taken by the colonial government of the French. Now, the emergence of nationalism in Vietnam. There was sometimes an open criticism, sometimes a secret criticism. The open criticism in the sense the teachers sometimes openly express their views that the system what is followed right now is not correct. Secretly, in the sense they could not say it openly to all of them, but within their close quarters they used to explain the view that this is not correct which is happening here. Especially the teachers. Teachers played a very vital role in the emergence of nationalism in Vietnam. The process of Vietnam nationalism was mainly guided or taken over from the hands of teachers, because these people are the people who motivated the students to think in the right path. Even though the textbooks, the curriculum was framed to justify and glorify the French control over the colonial mastership, but the teachers are the people who enlightened the students that the system is wrongly abrupted here. It is not shown the exact picture what is happening in the Vietnam right now. It is wrongly posted in the textbooks. It is wrongly printed in the textbooks. These views are brought by the teachers to the students, from students to the parents. It reached to the larger part of the society. So in this way, teachers played a very vital role. At the same time, the alarming note was even the French elites. The French elites also faced a problem with the people, because they can't have the security of their lives, and sometimes the colonial governments tried to ensure security for the French elites by dropping or restricting the eligible Vietnamese people to get into the white collar jobs. So this was fought by the Vietnam people. The steps taken by the French government to restrict them to get into the white collar jobs, automatically they raised the slogans against this. So the French elites used to feel dissatisfied and used to feel threatened by that. Even the white collar jobs eligible people of Vietnam also felt the same thing, that they are threatened, and at the same time the French elites who are in the position also felt threatened that they are going to be in trouble. By 1920s, the concept of ideology of nationalism started to spread to each and every corner of the world. The Lenin's moves, initiatives, Comintern International, all these things developed the idea of fighting against the colonial masters will lead to success. And in the background, as we have discussed, the landless people are growing day by day. This is the same situation which is present in Russia once upon a time. Lenin with his hardship came forward, removed the landlordship and redistributed the lands. In the same way it happened in China. So the Vietnam people also started to think and get confidence that we can do these things. And the students of Vietnam, the students started to move to China, Russia and the other nations to study about the ground reality, what is happening there, what is communism, what is democracy, what is the appropriate steps that should be taken, what is nationalism. To understand all these things, they started to concentrate on the facts and the realities. Now, even some people of the students started to move to the French regions or the France, where they can get a clear idea of what is industrial development, how a nation should be, what are the fundamental rights, what is liberty, equality, fraternity. These all concepts raised strongly the feeling of nationalism. And now the concept emerged into the minds of Vietnam people is that the colonial masters should be removed, the puppet king should be displaced or removed, and the old monarch should be replaced, who was removed by the French government. In this way, the ideology started to struck the minds of the Vietnam people in the larger extent, which will further encompass them and to lead the further struggle mottos. Then let us see how did it drive them towards the nationalism spirit. Now, moving on to the developments of nationalism. How did the nationalism merge and become a larger perspective? See here, these are the developments which happened before they attained their independence. We have many clinches which we are going to turn are the milestones in the journey of Vietnam's struggle for independence. Now let us see them step by step. See, in 1920s, there was a rise of political party called Young Annam Political Party. The demand of the Young Annam Political Party was, as many students have started to move towards China, Russia, French and study their languages, cultures, the revolutions, who went to Italy to study about the Mussolini's developments, all these things raised the initiative for them that their own leaders or the dynastic rule should be brought back or replaced, which were thrown away by the French people, and a puppet government was replaced. Let us see the name. His Nguyen dynasty has to be replaced. This is the main ideology of the Young Annam Party. Now moving on to the next major development. Because of the changes, the Communist Party developments, Sun Yat-sen's changes, Chiang Kai-shek taking over the chargeship, Sun Yat-sen removing the monarchy in China. The background of this has influenced very much the Vietnamese people. So Vietnam people also thought that we should take a clear stand and take the inspiration from them and fight against the French colonial masters. And the trend developments of Russia, where Lenin has taken over the provincial government, where it is not satisfying the needs of the people. These two are the major things which influenced the people of Vietnam and target them, and the minds of the Vietnam people were enlarged to get towards the nationalism and the freedom struggle against their colonial masters. Coming to the other major thing which motivated them was the Great Depression. The Great Depression which came in 1928, which has brought many changes in the lives of the people of Vietnam. The day-to-day lives are struck with a lot of troubles for them. We can see the uprising in the various levels. Let us see here. The rubber, other than the rice, the other most important crop which is grown in Vietnam was the rubber. The cost of the rubber has come down drastically. So the people, those who are depending on the crop of rubber, could not earn anything much larger when compared to the other fewer days. Now moving on to the rice production, third place in the world in the production of rice. So the production of rice is very high. The cost of the rice has come down because of Great Depression. Because of all these things, there are many other changes which have come down. See here, the rural debts, the people those who are lending money for them started to increase the interest rates, because the landlords are owning more than 70 to 80% of the lands, and the poor people are working under them, and they are forced to work because of the forced labor concept. We don't have any choice for us to do all these things. So they are forced to do the work at very less wage or amount of the time, and the unemployment condition also prevailed to a larger extent during the period of the economic depression. So because of the economic depression, each and every person was got struck with their day-to-day lives of the changes which are happening for us. Now the ideology of Young Annam went into the deep because of the lateral study of the students who went on to abroad to study of the various developments, the cultural changes and the important dynamic changes which are happening in China and Russia motivated the people of Vietnam to move on further and to envelop the further changes. And coming on to the Great Depression which happened in 1928, which brought each and every person to think on what is the stand that they are going to do it. If the situation is now is this, are we able to get bread for us? Can we get a single piece of bread for us to sustain? Are we able to do something or no? So these many doubts raised in the minds of the people got a solution in the name called Ho Chi Minh. His name is Ho Chi Minh. He is a man who arrived into the picture in February 1930. This man has moved to China and Russia, who have seen the various developments and the trends, how the people got motivated, what is the concept of nationalism. So he was a key man who fought against the Vietnam people's struggle for freedom movement. Now let us see him. What are the major steps that he has taken first? First of all, he has started a political party called Vietnamese Communist Party. Vietnam Communist Party. Later he understood that we should not be locking it to that, and so as we are drawing inspiration from China, let us change it name as Indo-China Communist Party. So whatever might be the name, he is able to motivate the people to get towards the change, motivated towards the ideology of nationalism. Already there are many factors which are working against the people to get or forcing them to run towards the nationalism. So the Young Anam party, the Nayan dynasty of replacement and get them into power, the revolutions which are happening in China and Russia, so the Great Depression effects, all these things, and the factor of Ho Chi Minh, the rising leader, has gathered all these things and raised them to move towards a strong sustainable growth of national movement. Now, when the situation is going on like this, the trends are changing in such a way. We have a colonial master, one against whom the Vietnamese people are fighting is the French people. Now, moving on to the other side of the coin, by late 1940s, the Japan ran away over the Vietnam people only to showcase their Southeast Asian control regions, because as a part of the Second World War, the Second World War was in progress in 1939. So in order to get that sustainable for them, so they started to move on to attack the Vietnam region in 1940, which motivated them and they occupied the Vietnam people. So in this process, the people decided to fight against Japan as well as against the French people. That is the reason why the Vietnam people have to fight against two colonial masters. One is French, the other one is Japan, who entered later but had a strong influence up to 5 to 6 years until the Second World War comes to an end. So in the process, we have to emerge as a strong group. So the people started the Vietnamese independence struggle, named it as Vietnamese. Vietnam independence struggle, named it as Vietnamese. So finally they fought in 1945. They ran away against the Japan. They were able to defeat the Japanese government. Now what happened for the French at this time? When they were able to defeat the Japan, it means that indirectly Japan was already in the lower ends, because Hitler on the other side has occupied the entire Japanese French region and is able to control the regions of French, and his army of French was sustainably could not concentrate much on the Vietnam region, because they are standing there to get saved themselves from the Hitler's attacks. So this was one trend which made the French people to stand alone there for some time. In the meanwhile, Japan people have risen to their height and they have proven that finally the Vietnam people have attacked them and were successful. By September 1945, the region which was occupied by the Japanese people, Honai region, was recaptured and our Ho Chi Minh became the leader of the nation of Vietnam, which the steps were started for the formation of the independent nation. Now let us see what happened further. Did Vietnam achieve its success of independence? Japan people gave them independence and went, or the French people regains back their power in the name of the puppet king? Let us see the trend what happened. Now finally, under the leadership of Ho Chi Minh, we got the final formation of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. The dream of Vietnam people came true finally on August 1945, after the Second World War came to end. He was the man who drove them completely and he took over the chairmanship of the control and land. As soon as he took over the power, he started to formulate four major issues which are threatening to the people of the Vietnam. The first one is, repeat, 25% of the land rents will be cut immediately. The second one is that second rate rents means the rents which are imposed additionally by the landlords will not be there further. The third step is all the arrears, or till now the farmers who are forced or could not pay back any loans, those all will be waived back and they will be cleared now, right now, because prior to 1945 any other loan debts would not be accepted from today onwards. This is a clear instruction given by him, and he also have an ideology of redistribution of the lands of the rich landlords who especially favor the French people, who are likely very closely intimated with the French people, will be removed and redistributed to the landless poor people. These are the four main steps he initiated to do. His dream was to reduce the land rents. The rents which are paid by the people are very less. The next point is the second rate of interest or the second rate of rents which are paid for the landlord people should not be much. The third concept what he brought for us is that all arrears till now whatever is there will be waived off completely, and finally the lands will be redistributed, especially the lands which are under the control of the French allies or the French people who are very close with the French people. Even the Vietnam landlords also will be confiscated and redistributed. These are the clear ideologies what he had, but the future of Vietnam was not so secure as he saw it, and these steps could not result in much. The later trends have changed into a new concept for him. He has to face some more challenges to become united, and it was a long journey for the Vietnam to cross on, to move on, to get finally independent Vietnam, because we have some more milestones to be crossed before we reach the final stage of independence. So the journey of the emergence of nationalism in Vietnam has taken many folded stages, milestones. It has crossed many stages, and finally it has achieved to the stage of the emergence of an independent nation. So the newly republic nation of Vietnam could not live longer. It has got again further milestones to be passed on. These milestones are retwisted again, as we saw Hitler was attacking the region of French colonies and the French land or the France mainland. So the French people were silent for some time. During the meanwhile, we got the Japanese entry. So the people of Vietnam were fighting against the Japanese people up to 1945 under the leadership of Ho Chi Minh. So we could get independence from Japanese people, but we got the re-entry of the French people back into the picture, and these people entered with their MasterCard, the same emperor Bao Dai, the puppet king, and they made his entry into very clear stand, and they started to control it again for a certain period of time. So the dream of the Vietnam people to attain a complete independent state could not reach them to the final stage of success. So again from 1945 to another 8 years, that is up to 1954 in the middle. So these people are very much engaged again to fight against them. After 8 years of struggle continuously under the leadership of Ho Chi Minh, then finally in 1954 at a place called Dien Bien Phu. Dien Bien Phu is the name of the place in Vietnam, where the French army was defeated completely with 16,000 soldiers surrendering themselves, plus the officers who are the in charge of the French battalions who have surrendered completely and waived and accepted their defeat. With that, we have the initiative of discussing now for the peace conference. Here is a small twist. Till now we saw the Vietnam people fighting against the Japanese people attained their independence. Then we saw the people fighting against the French people. We got the independence. Now the French people played their MasterCard using the technology or the mastermind of divide and rule policy. Now they came with an initiative that in the peace conference which was held at Geneva, the Vietnam people are forced and persuaded to accept the division of the nation into two parts, that is North Vietnam and South Vietnam. Here the Vietnam people are not given any chance of choice here. They were compulsory forced in the condition that only that they are going to give them freedom. So the Vietnam now got redivided into North Vietnam and South Vietnam. So the North Vietnam was taken over by the communist leader Mr. Ho Chi Minh, and the South Vietnam was handed over to the old emperor. But very soon there was a twist there also. We got the emergence of the new king. The new king name is Ngo Dinh Diem. Ngo Dinh Diem is a man who does not believe in kind of liberal policies, who believes completely in the autocratic rule. In this autocratic rule, whoever starts to question him, they were sent to jail. He became a complete monarchic, absolute monarch who never listens to anyone, who wants a strong, stable monarchic setup, not a communist setup, not a democratic setup. He was fed up with that, and he started to initiate many of the people, and his idea was that there should not be anyone who is going to question him. This stand of this Ngo Dinh Diem made the people to get against him and form an independent action force which is going to fight for their freedom. That is the National Liberation Force was again initiated in South Vietnam to fight against them. So now we are going to read what happened in North Vietnam, what happened in South Vietnam, what were the changes that brought them, and were they able to be reunited again, or still there are any milestones that has to be crossed Do we have any entry of the other forces or re-entry of the Japanese people or any other superpower? Let us discuss them in the next part of the lesson. Now, let us see the developments what happened in the North Vietnam after it was divided and handed over the North Vietnam to our leader Ho Chi Minh. So the Ho Chi Minh was initially following the policy from 1945 to 1954. He was following a very soft policy that we'll reduce the tax, we'll reduce the rents, we are going to ban the arrears. His stand was very highly diplomatic and he is very soft towards the people. But the people are expecting something large from him. People made him a leader with an expectations like what trends were happened in Russia, what changes have brought in China. So they were expecting him to do something in a very larger scale. So after 1954, they came with a clear stand that the lands of all the rich landlords, where 70% of the entire lands of Vietnam are controlled by the rich landlords, were cut down, were taken over strictly from them. And the major thing what they have done is they have redistributed the lands to the landless peasants who does not have a single pinch of land, were again redistributed, and this made the people to feel very happy. In this way, Ho Chi won the hearts of the people of Vietnam to a very larger extent, where they have waited for the dream to come true, where they have expecting that even an inch of land would make them to feel happy, but he distributed them hectares and hectares of lands which were once upon a time controlled by the landlords, and where the same people are forced to work under the forced labor concept without giving any payment or salaries for them. So this made them to feel really happy and truly their own government. So in this way, the northern part of Vietnam is experiencing a tremendous growth towards a positive sign, and people are very much happy and well connected with the leadership of Ho Chi Minh. The real twist now enters into the Vietnam struggle. Till now we have seen the Vietnam people fighting for independence against the colonial masters. Now the people of Vietnam have to face a superpower nation who is going to suppress them because of a normal reason where they are afraid of. Before going into the reason what made the superpower entry into the issue here, now let us discuss the entry of US. Before that, the background of this was the National Liberation Front, which is against the monarchic rule in South Vietnam, started to develop intimacy with the North emerging communist leader, who was very happy. The people are very much satisfied with the steps taken by Ho Chi Minh. So they decided we would like to have a leader like him, not like to have a leader who is not at all relevant to the situations or who is having deaf ear towards their problems. So this collaboration and unification or unity of the Ho Chi Minh towards the National Liberation Front, and under the guidance of Ho Chi Minh, the National Liberation Front is fighting to get the independence struggle for the unification of the nation. So the growing communism alarmed the US entry into the war or the scene. Now the fear of the US entry is that if communism start to grow in such a larger scale in every nation, very soon we would get Russia to be emerged as a superpower country. In order to check Russia, the emergence or the growth of socialism or communism should be stopped and checked. For that, they have used all their weapons, methods and strategies to stop that. But finally, let us see what happened. The result was, before going into the result analysis, US entered into the conflict or the issue of war in 1965. It waged a long war for 7 years and has invested a huge amount. The effect was faced not only in Vietnam but also in US also, because the US, even in the US, native citizens of US started to question the actions of the US government. What is the motto behind the US government taking an initiative and entering into the Vietnam and destroying the entire forest fields and everything? We have statistic analysis here, like there were nearly 34 lakh soldiers who were deployed or sent to Vietnam borders to crush the growth of communism. Do you think is it a really wise step to do that? No. And during that period, US is a far more advanced nation than any other nation in the world during that period or even today. But even then, we have the casualties at very high level. US stands in ranking medicals the number one. providing medical assurance in number 1. So even during that period, 47,000 people were found dead immediately on spot, and nearly 3.3 lakh people were wounded. These are the only statistics which are revealed outside, and we have a dangerous step taken by America to crush the communist growth in Vietnam. We would wonder the steps taken by the US government, like what is the intention behind this in doing such a severe action against a country which is very small, which is fighting against the colonial masters for many years, and emerging nation. Let us see what happened is they have used Agent Orange. Agent Orange is a chemical defoliant which is used to kill the plants. It is also known as a plant killer. Why is it known as Agent Orange? Is that Agent Orange is filled in balloons or turbans which is banded with the orange color ribbon. So in order to recognize that they were filled and fitted for planes, and using aeroplanes, they used sprinklers as aeroplanes, and they started to sprinkle it in the 14% of land area of Vietnam to crush the plant growth, forests and all these things. In this process, many of the human beings were also affected very severely, because the chemical which is deployed on them immediately kills the plants, and when it falls on the human being's skin, immediately we get cancer and the other diseases. And because of this, 14% of the land of Vietnam forest land was completely got destroyed. Their intention in doing this is that the people or anybody is hiding under the trees could not be hard or can be seen clearly, so that we can fight easily. Because of this small ideology, Americans have spent millions of crore rupees and made it very clear to destroy the Vietnam completely to a larger extent. This forced the people all over the world to think against the actions of the American government. What is the motto of America in behind of this? Is this the only motto of the fear of growth of communism which made America to spend this much and move on to such a drastic steps of using the aeroplanes and filling or sprinkling the chemical weapons against the people? Many people were found dead, and many people were reported that they got some dangerous diseases entry into their bodies, and small children were reportedly dead and could not reach to their expectations of the life expectancy. These are the major things which were affected because of the America's actions. Now let us see, how did Vietnam people fought against the American actions or the entry? What made America to step back from the issue here? We'll discuss it. Till now, we have seen the countries which are fighting against their colonial masters. We have discussed the emergence of Russia into a very communist democratic setup. We have seen the struggle. Till now we have discussed about Vietnam, the struggle between two colonial masters. How did they fight with two colonial masters? How did the entry of US power broke the issue, and how did it re-emerged against it? These all are the factors which we have discussed now. Now we are going to discuss with a nation where it was not at all a nation earlier. Yes, it was not at all a nation earlier. Till now we have discussed about the country which was not at all a country now. Yeah, the twist is this. The country called Nigeria, it is well known for us right now. Nigeria is located in the southwestern part of Africa. The location of Nigeria itself is very clear. Nigeria itself, we get to strike into the mind that oil, petroleum products, a desert region, black people, colored people, slave people, the native African people. These are the images what we get into the idea of the word Nigeria. But in actual practice, Nigeria was not at all in existence before the Britishers colonized it. The twist is here. The Britishers are the people who made the nation of Nigeria. Britishers brought some tribal people together in three different parts and formed a different nation, emerged a new country. This was a step taken by the colonial master for the first time in the history where we have seen. So the struggle for independence also was very difficult here, because these people were never a nation. So they have to fight their internal disputes, at the same time they have to fight their common enemy. It's a very interesting concept here. Let us see how did these groups fight against the colonial master, that to a mighty power like Britishers. Now, who are the tribal groups who are brought together? Hausa, Faluna, is the northern region of Nigeria occupied by these tribal people, and they are mostly Muslim people. They follow the traditions and customs of Islam religion. Coming to the other one, Yoruba tribe. Yoruba tribe, most of them south of Yoruba are Christian dominated region, or like Christian religion is famous here because of the efforts made by the missionaries who are present there. Now coming to the other region, it is known as Igbo region or the Igbo tribal people. Now the twist is here, all these people are the tribal people. Why did I mention the word twist here is that if we are well educated, if you know the concept of liberty, equality, fraternity, the growing revolutions, the communistic changes, the Russian Revolution, the China uprising, or the liberal movements in France, the glorious revolutions in Britain, or the American War of Independence, if you read, write, or have an understanding, then we can discuss about the concept of nationalism, or we can merge it into the people, the idea of nationalism. But here, these people are tribal people. They are very much deeply connected with the forest regions. They have their own superstitions. They believe very strongly in their own superstitions. They never ever have gone through or have an idea of what is happening around the world of them. So now it is a real challenging task of the people of the emerged Nigeria because of the steps taken by the colonial master by uniting these three groups of people like Hausa Fulani tribal group of Muslims and for Yoruba tribal group of Christians and the Igbo tribal group. These three tribal groups are again different tribal groups. They are not a same or unique tribal groups. Each one has their own customs and their own traditions, which finally will lead them to get towards the ultimate unification of Nigeria. Here we have two concepts here. First thing is, religions are different and their feelings are different. Their connectivity is different. They are different tribal groups. Common connectivity is they all are tribal groups. The next concept is they have to fight with their internal enemies as well as with the external enemy or the colonial master who is ruling them, so that they can get to the clarity of the unification or the independence of Nigeria. Now let us see how did these three tribal people emerge and form into an independent nation of the present existing Nigeria, the most world's dominant oil producer, Nigeria. Let us have a flashlight on the history of Nigeria, on the struggle of the three tribal groups emerging into a separate nation. Now let us see here, how did the name of Nigeria come up to the world? The word river Niger has brought an excellence for the river country's name Nigeria, because the region which is around the river Niger is called as the region of Nigeria, which later the Britishers have taken. But even before the arrival of the Britishers, we have a glorious history for Nigeria. It's not in the sense of their gloriousness in their past cultures, but the people of Nigeria were world famous. How are they world famous? What made them world famous? The concept is not that they are because of their talented, but because of the thing is, up to 16th century, the Americans need slaves. It means the Britishers need slaves in America to work in their fields. Most of the Americans who are settled in now got migrated from the Britain to America during the early part of the 16th century. So in the large fields, who can work very hard? Basically, Britishers are, the climatic condition of British is completely cold, pleasant and very romantic climatic conditions, where you don't have extremely hot climatic conditions or extremely cold climatic conditions. And these kind of people can't do much hard work in the fields. But when it comes to the country like Nigeria, where equator passes very close to them, and we have the dark skinned people or colored people, or literal word Negroes who stay here, they can do work hard. So up to 16th century, the slaves, especially the region of river Niger, the tribal people are caught in the tribal regions and exported to America to work in the agricultural fields. In this way, the slave trade center was the river Niger region. This made Nigeria a world famous region of the 16th century. Later, when Abraham Lincoln has banned the slave trade and strictly implemented this one, this made the changes that the drop of the slaves has brought the idea down. But later, the other important factor which attracted the people towards Nigeria is Niger, and the other one is palm oil and cocoa growth. Palm oil is used in the entire world, but the production is very less in the other parts of the region. And cocoa, which is used in the chocolates of all the Cadbury's and all these things, we need the production of it in a very high rate. So this is another factor which drives the attention of the world towards the Nigerian country. The Britishers have contributed to their ever level of extent to the uprising of Nigeria by occupying a region on the western part of Nigeria, that is, the region name is Lagos, which was later emerged as the capital of Lagos. Now in the Lagos they have developed the port region and all the things, and they made it to turn into a excellent water transport or hubbing place for them to transport either for the slaves or for the trade or for the palm oil or for the cocoa. In these major steps were brought into the transformation by the Britishers in 1861 when they have occupied the Lagos and developed it into a port city. The Lagos has also contributed for the further developments which the Britishers could not imagine or could not expect. Let us see what are the further developments which were brought because of the development of Lagos. Now, after the development of the Britishers who developed the Lagos, now we got the concept of the Lagos emerging a place or the main center for the development of Pan-Africanism. What does the word Pan-Africanism mean by? Pan-Africanism is a mean or a true force which binded all the African people. It was a concept which was developed by Nkrumah, who was a leader in Ghana, who gave first the concept of Pan-Africanism. The concepts which are covered in the Pan-Africanism are all African people, irrespective of their tribes, community, races, languages, religion, whatever it is, they all are African people. They all are one group people, and they should fight against the racial discrimination which is experienced by the African nations from many hundreds of years. And at the same time, the unity. We all should be united against any other external aggression power which is uniting or dividing us at any concept of time using any of the unnecessary, irrelevant human attitudes like color, race or anything else. And he also made that we, using the concept of Pan-Africanism, we have to develop the quality or the incidence of equality in the society, equal respect for all the people in the society, social justice assured for everybody, and finally we have to bring the human dignity at the end for all the African people. So the concept of Pan-Africanism is nothing but we have to forget all our disputes, all our issues. If at all any foreigner coming and attacking us, we all should become together and we all have to fight against the external enemy who is going to address us, who is going to turn us into pieces. And at the same time, we have to fight against the racial discrimination. We all should be united and we have to strive to get the equal status in the society and justice for us, finally leading to the human dignity. Every individual is worth of human dignity. This is the concept of Pan-Africanism which was given by Nkrumah, the leader of Ghana, who fought for independence struggle in Ghana, which later the Pan-Africanism is the basis for the development of nationalism in Nigeria. So let us see how did the Nigerians adopt the nationalism through the concept of Pan-Africanism. What guided them to reach there? We'll discuss it. Now, let us see here how did the Britishers see the feeling of the people of the Nigerian people. Britishers, as usual, as it was experienced in the Indian case, the same was experienced in the Nigerian case. See, at the end of the day, they are colonial masters and these people are the people who are colonized. Now, the Nigerians are highly discriminated. The Nigerians' discrimination was in the extreme level as it was in the Indians level. Only thing is they did not mention like Nigerian dogs. The thing is, the Nigerians who are well educated or Africans who are highly educated were excluded from the civil services, and the entrepreneurs who has to do business with the people, were also being discriminated on the basis of their origin. So this made the people to feel that they are disconnected with the people of the rulers. At the same time, they had the dual mentality or the dual role. They encouraged the elites and the local group leaders to get connected and gain control over the regions, because the Nigeria is divided into three tribal groups, and they wantedly divided the west and east again further to have further divisions for them. And the tribal local chiefs were encouraged so much that they could control their own lands and they would not get any resistance from the local people, because local leaders are controlling them. And coming to the situation, because of the modern technology which was brought by Britishers in the southern part, we could get highly advanced technical changes when compared to the northern part. The northern part could not get any major changes of development or could not achieve anything truly or successfully, which made them to be remained in the undeveloped sector or the unmodernized sector when in comparable to the south. At the same time, if you see the statistics or the strata of 1939, the Nigeria was still divided by the time of the Second World War. Why did I mention the year 1939 is the 1939 is the peak of excellence of the Second World War, the initial stages where almost all the countries in the world started to rethink on the formation of the integration or the independence struggles. So during that time also in 1939, the Nigeria was not united. They don't have the concept of nationalism at all in their mind, because they were still divided into three parts: the west, the east and the north. The Britishers' high and soul end policy was still in tactics in Nigeria, that is the divide and rule policy was still in existence. Now let us see how did the Nigerian people fought against the divide and rule policy, what made them to get united. We'll discuss. Now, in response to the division of the people of the Britishers, the well-educated Western education people, the philosophers, the thinkers, the political scientists started to rethink the idea of the Britishers, and they started to support Nigerians secretly, enhance them to fight against the Britishers. We got one man who came forward, the world famous Herbert Macaulay, who came with an initiative to develop the Nigerians to fight against the mighty British Empire at any cost. And in this process, he is going to help them to do everything. This was done by an initiative step, how the Annie Besant helped the Indians to fight against the British power by Indian National Congress, forming the party of Indian National Congress. In the same steps, Macaulay has encouraged the the Nigerians to form the National Nigerian Democratic Party in order to address a common platform or showcase the dissatisfaction at a common stand, so that people can come together and fight against the mighty British power under a single banner, that is NNDP. This NNDP participated in the elections from 1923, 1928 and 1933. In the three consecutive elections, they are victorious to a larger extent. So in these trends of changing election strategy, the population coming closer, we have got the other youth movement which was triggered in 1936, that is the another leader called Nnamdi Azikiwe. Nnamdi Azikiwe was a new emerging leader in the northern region. He formed the movement called Nigerian Youth Movement. In short forms, it is called NYM. So now the uprising of Nnamdi Azikiwe made the people to think, and in order to avoid any further confusions, our Herbert Macaulay called Nnamdi Azikiwe in 1944 and made to a compromise and established a new common platform for all the people of Nigeria and all the tribal communities together, so that it could bring a major impact on the Britishers. And he also encouraged them to attack literally against the Britishers through military campaigns. This was the support given by Herbert Macaulay in all streams and all forces, and he motivated the people. And finally in 1944, he made Nnamdi Azikiwe as a leader of Nigerian National Conference of Cameroons, the council which is going to fight for not only for the Nigerians but also for the Cameroons, who are all the tribal community people. Now here we have to understand the concept is that all the people are dissatisfied with the British rule. All the people are facing the discrimination. At the same time, all are different by their tribal groups. The most striking feature of all these things is the leadership of Azikiwe, who brought all the Nigerian people together with the motto of Pan-Africanism, and which later generated the Pan-Nigerianism, which means that we have to fight for Nigeria, cutting across all the boundaries of religion, race, sex, or any other difficulties of their tribal communities, whichever are bounding them not to do so. And finally, in 1944, the emergent national leadership was able to move forward to the far of excellence. As the post-World War II era starts, the Nigerian movement became very popular. It reached to its apex because the soldiers who were in the Second World War have returned back and started to work for the independence struggle of Nigeria. Now, here in Nigeria, we have to remember two concepts here. The Nigerian people have to fight against two enemies. One is their colonial masters, while the other one is their own tribal conflicts, because still they are divided by the regions of north, west and the east, which was put forth seeds by the Britishers. So finally, they are fighting between themselves. They are uniting themselves and commonly fighting against the Britishers. In the meanwhile, we got the emergence of many local parties, and let us see what happened finally. What was the end of the struggle of Azikiwe? Now, as we discussed here, the Nigerians have the twin task of fighting between themselves and fighting between the colonial master. As the process continued, we can see across that even the people are divided by their tribal communities, but they have a common enmity between the colonial master, which merged them or to turn out them into three different political parties. That is, one is the National Northern People's Congress, which intentionally for the northern people with the motto of to fight against the Britishers. The second one is the National Council for Nigerian and the Cameroons. The Nigerian NCNC, that is a National Council for Nigerians and the Cameroons, was initially started by our Macaulay, and later it was by Azikiwe, who took it forward to an international market and made it as an international pan-Nigerian religion, which could motivate the Nigerians to come together and fight against the mighty British Empire, against their basic policy of to divide and rule, or to against the discrimination or against the racism and all these things. And the third one we have is the action groups. They does not belong to any particular region. For all the regions, they commonly need a common alternative we need here to fight against the Britishers. All are dissatisfied with the Britishers. Finally, the Britishers have come down with the growing dissatisfaction of the people. After the Second World War, the UNO formation, these all steps have made the Britishers to rethink on their policies, and finally the independence was granted over to our Nigeria, and the autonomy of the three regions was recognized and given three-region autonomy on 1st October 1963. The independence was very great achievement for the Nigerian people, but the achievement could not live for a long time. Within a short span of time, the achievement which they have struggled for many years and achieved the independence could short-lived, because the democratic government which was set up here was a very weak government. Because of the weakness of the government, or because of the lack of strong efficiency in the government, it was taken over, turned into a civil war, the war between the different nations or the tribal communities which are present in the nation, which they were led to the civil war, and which later were raised of the issue of military taking over the control of the land of that particular region. And for many years the military was under the control, and these military rulers are corrupt rulers who suppressed all the basic rights of the individuals and imposed corruption at higher level. And for these people, the oil companies who need oil in Nigeria started to invest them and started to give share in their profits to the fraud military rulers and make them to feel that they are the supreme level or in the far of excellence. Finally, in 1999, after many steps, many invocations and many repetitions of the UNO and all these government bodies, finally in 1999, the Nigerian people were able to elect a democratic, stable government. Even today, it was a dream come true for the Nigerian people to have a strong and efficient democratic government like India, what we have recently. The election procedures were not fair and familiar here. So, let us see how far these people are able to do it. What is the oil concept here? How is the environment getting disturbed here? How the oil companies have changed the lives of the Nigerian people? We'll discuss. Till now we have discussed about the Nigerians people, their struggle to get their independence struggle, how did they fight the Britishers concept of divide and rule policy. Even after they attained the long struggle, they got the independence, the government was weak, later it shifted on to the dictatorship, militarianship, then again coming out to restoring of the democracy. In this process, let us put forth all the political issues aside. Let us see on the environmental point of view, what is happening in Nigeria. We will cover it under the heading of oil environment leads to politics. Now coming here, oil has a vital resource which is present, a natural resource in Nigeria. Most of the companies in 1950, when they got the news that there are oil mills or oil is found in Nigeria, immediately they ran to the things of Nigerian lands to acquire their rights. The company which was successful in getting the rights of a major larger share is the Dutch Shell company, which owns many small companies. Under the leadership of the Dutch Shell company, they could acquire the lands or the mines which will give oil for them at very less cost. Now what happened because of their requirement? Generally, if we get a foreign investment to our nation or a foreign company coming and doing our resources, we get many benefits from this. But the Nigerian people are the most worst hidden people in this case, because they could not get any major achievements which are going to be done as it done in the MNCs and all these things. Further, they were spoiling the present existing government by adding some share for it also. Let us discuss them in detail here. See, the extraneous extractions. The oil was drilled away in such a way that without even concentrating on the further storage of the resources, it was drilled continuously and exported continuously to make huge profits for their requirements. Now coming to the concept here, if they drill so much, what would be the natural imbalance which is going to happen under the earth? What would be the effects of the people, those who are staying in that region? The company never answered any such kind of questions, because they were not at all interested on this kind of issues at any point of time. Next, in this process, who is supporting them to do all these things? Because it is a private company, they have their techniques to get them involved. They started to share their profits with the rulers, especially the military dictators who are already completely corrupt people. So they were expecting the minting of money which is done by the private companies which are adding for them. At the same time, they have created the havoc, a disaster in the coastal areas, because the oil spill releases the wastes into the mangrove forest. Nearly 5 to 10% of the mangrove forest have already got oil spills and got spoiled here. In the slow process of time, immediately we don't get any effects. Even the drinking water of the people got the oil spills found. So the naturalists, the environmentalists are afraid on the growing trends of the Nigeria, or the company's strategy in acquiring millions and millions of rupees at the cost of Nigerian population. But the government had a deaf ear on this. The oil spills which were released into the thing may not immediately affect any of them, but in the course of long journey, they immediately can turn up into a cancer disease even for small children also. So the people and the environmentalists are afraid and scared of these kind of developments which could happen in our Nigeria. So the fish or the ecological balance in the water, because of the water resources getting contaminated by the oil spills or the chemicals which are released by the oil resources companies, will definitely spoil this. So one of the attempt made by the environmentalist, what was the result of this? Did he was successful, or what tempts him to do something, or did he reach to his goals? What happened in the world scenario? What was actually met to him? Let us see that. Yeah, as per the growing dissatisfaction of the 1990s, many of the environmentalists who are observing carefully the developments which are happening in the Nigerian Delta region, they started to question the ecological imbalance, who is going to bear the loss, if it is going to cause environmental debalance for us. Now, let us see here, in 1990s, the Nigerian Delta region was completely damaged. Environmental imbalance is happening here, and the ecological imbalance is going to get a cost of the people's life in Nigeria. So, they started to demand ecological damage, whatever has done by the oil companies, should be compensated. The concept is they have to be compensated at any cost. The word compensation means here that the loss or the oil spills or the money required to relocate the water or clean the water from the oil spills should be made or taken by the company's responsibility, and they have to clean the water, provide a safe environment for the Nigerian people to do it, because the purpose of the companies here is to do business, not to spoil the lives of the people of Nigeria, and at the cost of the people's life of Nigeria. No company can dare to do such kind of things. This was the idea and the view of the environmentalist, and one famous environmentalist named Mr. Ken Saro-Wiwa. Ken Saro-Wiwa came up with an environmentalist and approached the international political scenario and got the support of UNO, and even the severe criticism raised against the moves which are moved against him. They arrested him, they tortured him, and finally the dictatorship government has executed him in 1990s, which was a shock to the international community that what is going on actually in Nigeria. Do they have any humanitarian grounds or no? Are they going on the humanitarian grounds basis or no? Are they truly democratic setup, or these questions have raised in the minds of the people of Nigeria. Even today we have many questions to be answered for the people of Nigeria. Let us hope they'll have a successful, strong and stable setup for the Nigerian democratic government. The Nigerians are still struggling to make their own stable governments and to have control on their own natural resources, the oils. The oil is a huge resource what they have, but still the authority on their own natural resources what they own of their land are questionable. Let us hope Nigeria will form a stable government and acquire complete rights on their own natural resources, especially the oil.